The Memory of Love, Chapter 41. Adrian makes his way to Elias Cole's room, direct from his meeting with Mrs. Mara. The meeting had not gone especially well. The new oxygen concentrators were held up in customs. "He could die," said Adrian. "He's dying anyway," she replied. "We are talking extra weeks or months." Perhaps he shouldn't have pressed it, but he did. Suddenly, Mrs. Mara stopped talking, sat down heavily, and rubbed her eyelids. Adrian felt like a bully. Now, memories of his last conversation with Mama Kay reverberate as he crosses the courtyard. Here in the land of the mute, Elias Cole has elected to talk. It has never occurred to Adrian to ask why. Just as he never questioned the presence of a patient in his office, only asked how he might be able to help them. The difference between Elias Cole and the men at the mental hospital, as well as those early patients Adrian saw, is that Cole is educated. The more education a person has received, the more capable of articulating their experiences they are. Also of intellectualizing them. Of course, those with less education tend to express their conflicts physically, though, through violence or psychosomatically. Deafness, blindness, muteness, paralysis, hallucinations, visual and olfactory, adequacy roasting meat. It isn't considered acceptable to talk about these differences outside psychiatric cycles. But this is the fact of the matter. In Adrian's opinion, the second category of patients are much more straightforward to treat. The first hold the interesting challenge. He steps into Elias Cole's room. "How are you?" "I'm exactly as you see me," says Elias Cole. "Surviving." He coughs and spits into a handkerchief. "I apologize about last week. The doctors feel I have been straining myself. They tell me I should try not to talk." He gives a colorless laugh. "I sent Baba Gale with a message, but he was unable to find you." He looks at Adrian, who feels a spark of guilt. He wonders what Elias Cole knows, whether there is anything contained in his law. "I'm sorry," he replies. "When I'm not here, I'm generally at the mental hospital." "Ah, and how are the inmates? I hope you're bringing them peace." "It's interesting you should say that. Is peace what you'd like for yourself?" That look again. What does it hold exactly? Mama Kay has inherited it, though in her it appears more amused, less calculated. Adrian doesn't entirely expect Cole to answer. But then the old man says, "I told you once, there were two endings to this story. We are but waiting for the third." My promotion to the position of dean coincided with our move away from the campus. There was no doubt things had changed. The campus was not the place it had once been. There were troublemakers among the student fraternity. As it happened, I had done well enough over the years to build a house, an ambition I had nurtured for some time. The new house was in the west of the city. I had the good fortune to be able to buy several town lots together, and the house boasted a sizable garden. After years on campus, where the grounds were taken care of by a team of workers, Safia had her own garden again. She set to work, terracing the land, planting an orchard towards the rear, lawns and formal beds at the front. As for me, my work at the university kept me occupied. The dean had been promoted to the position of vice chancellor. There were shortages and frequent power cuts. There were strikes and petitions. The young by then, so different from my day, they seemed to think we could magic light out of the darkness and were convinced they must find somebody to blame. We had been married for 21 years and lived in our new house for 4. It doesn't make me proud to tell you I was elsewhere that day, so it happened that Baba Gale was first to hear the news. "This is your first rainy season." So you see now how the rains behave in this part of the world. And what you see now is only the beginning. They drive across the Atlantic, and here on the edge of the continent, we catch the full force of them. Safia had maintained her business delivering flowers to weddings and such like. Not many people marry during the rains. Most people prefer the end of Ramadan, depending on when it falls. Or Christmas, sometimes though, it happens. A couple may have their own reason. Even now, I can see Safia standing in the driveway in the morning while Baba Gale loaded pots into the back of the car. She had never sold the variant, which she retained for her own use. That day, she had a delivery, a wedding party up in Hill Station. I can't remember whether I knew this or not. It is as likely I didn't. The road from our house up to Hill Station is one most new visitors generally find unnerving to drive. A railway line was cut into the hillside once. It had a narrow gauge with a single carriage hauled up the steep track by the engine. When the road to replace the railway was laid, the dimensions were retained, though the traffic now moved in two directions. Nobody ever thought to put a guardrail in place. During the rains, the water poured off the hillside, carrying mud and rocks onto the road. She had delivered the flowers successfully, as far as I later understood, and was on her way home, driving a 20-year-old car. No other vehicle was involved. According to the police, nobody else was hurt. The sole witness, the driver of the car following, said she had edged over to make way for an army truck coming in the other direction. It seems she misjudged the depth of the curve. Doubtless, the rain reduced visibility, made the road all the harder to navigate. For Safia was an excellent driver. The car rolled 30 yards down the hill. No seatbelt. I don't believe the variant was even fitted with them. She suffered little in the way of injuries. Her neck, though, was snapped. The police would not come out during the rains. One of the occupants of the hut nearby recognized the car. He sent his son to our house and found Baba Gale. She was gone already by then. Impossible to move the body during the downpour. Baba Gale hurried up to the campus. I was not there. Instead, he happened upon my daughter. She knew just by his appearance on campus something dreadful must have occurred. Later, Baba Gale brought the news to me. Somehow, he knew where to find me. I have no idea how. He stopped speaking, turns his head on the pillow. Pass me that, please. He stretches out a hand. Adrian rises and picks up a framed photograph. He is about to hand it to Elias. Oh, no, I'm meant for you. Adrian looks at the photograph, expecting to see a picture of Safia. Instead, he finds himself looking at a photograph of Mama Kay, taken when she must have been about 16. She is looking at the camera, slightly askance, behind the look of youthful defiance in her eyes, the same look of detached appraisal she still wears on occasion. She leans into the back of her chair, her body is turned away from the photographer, though her gaze is directed towards him. Her elbow rests on the edge of the seat. The stiff cloth of her gown rises unevenly at one shoulder and slips from the other. A narrow necklace follows the contours of her collarbone and disappears behind the necklace. The neckline of her dress. Her hair is caught in a heavy and elaborately knotted headdress in a print that matches her dress. She doesn't smile, and evident between her eyebrows is the faint smudge of a frown. Yet Adrian sees nothing between her stern in her expression. Rather, she seems to be assessing the situation, contemplating the camera, and through its lens, those who might observe her in the future. Her expression suggests compliance more than participation with the act of being photographed. Seeing her thus so unexpectedly leaves Adrian momentarily disoriented. He pulls himself up short and replaces the photograph. She had wanted to be a historian. After that day, she lost faith in me. At first, I thought she was mourning her mother, but a distance opened up between us and was never again bridged. She was of that age, no longer a child, yet still a child. Somehow she found out. People gossip. Impossible to stop them. He closes his eyes. Impossible. I had my enemies. They must have delighted in it. Outside the sun has almost set. The rains have cleared and the colors of the earth have suffused the sky with a deep red. The skeletons of the two kites flutter on the razor wire. Outside, somebody is walking down the corridor. The sound of their footsteps mounts and then recedes down the hall. Adrian says, I'm not sure I understand. The old man sighs. Baba Gale knew where to find me. Don't you see? I expect he must have known all along. Perhaps Safia knew too. Who knows? Where were you? I was with my mistress. Adrian covers his surprise. Yes, my mistress. From the 4th year of my marriage to Safia, I had kept a mistress. Always the same one. In that respect, I was loyal. You must understand. No. I would like you to understand. She gave me something Safia never did. With her, I did not feel wanting, second best. All very banal, I'm sure. Believe me, I was aware of it at the time. It made no difference. And you were at her home at the time of Safia's car accident? With Vanessa, yes.